So this is Kurt with Madison ModPo. On my left is Scott. On my right is Jim, Roger, and Lou. And today we're going to talk about Rae Armantraut's poem, Spent. So Jim.
Just a refresher, Rae Armantraut was associated with the Language School of Poets. She went to UC Berkeley in the late 60s and studied under Denise Levertov, who's a famous poet and was an English professor at Cal. Let me read the poem first, and then I'll make a few observations, and then I'll get out of your way. Notice the capitalization as we go through. Suffer, as in allow. List, as in want. Listless, as in transcending desire, or not rising to greet it. To list is to lean dangerously to one side. Have you forgotten? Spent, as in exhausted. Now, what I love about this poem is its brevity, its simplicity, and how so much is packed into a few words. One of the central themes of this poem, which is desire, human desire. And the postmodern philosopher that comes to mind for me is Deleuze, the French philosopher, who argued that humans are basically desire machines. And that gets in our way of our happiness. Suffer, as in allow.
Well, the word suffer, right, in the first line, of course, this has a sense of royalty. You know, we will suffer their presence, but it also, you know, in more its common sense, does mean suffer, as in suffering. At least that's where one direction I want to go is where she's picking words that have multiple meanings, and I think that creates an openness to the poem where you could go in maybe different directions with it. List. So I don't have much more to say than on suffer, unless anybody else does.
Well, suffer has, to me, the connotation of allowing it, but not enthusiastically allowing it. You know, somebody that's superior will listen to you, or will, if you want to come in and offer us something in the way of a change or something, they're busy, but they'll sit down and listen to you. They will suffer to listen to you. So it's not a really enthusiastic word, but it's allow. So it's not, you know, it's allowing, but not enthusiastically allowing or agreeing to. Allow means also to agree to something.
Yeah.
So, complicated word.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, I was reading that word "suffer" reminded me of a biblical passage.
Sure.
Where Christ said, "Suffer not the children to
Suffer the children.
Suffer the children
to come unto me."
Yeah, that's it.
Wow. What does the biblical passage itself mean? In the sense of he, in his godlike state, will deign the presence of the children. I mean, it's
the best thing I've seen connected with this is what we are doing on the border of our country to children. And we are not suffering the children to come unto us.
Yes.
And then the simile is that Jesus, he was at a celebration or something, and people were trying to keep these kids away. he's, important man. That's not what the kids said. And he turned around and he said, no, suffer the children to come unto me. And the myth is that he actually got down amongst the children and had them hug him and be with them. And it's such a contrast to what we're presently doing to the unaccompanied children that are trying to get into our country.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an openness, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
A welcome.
Mm-hmm.
But yet it still to me implies some form of hierarchy.
Sure.
Sure.
That you're going to suffer the presence of somebody lower than you. Not that the greeting can't be. No, I like your point. But maybe in this instance, if you're talking about the children, there would not be any reservation on Jesus's part, presumably, right? It would just be.
Well, the end of that is, for unto them is the kingdom of God. That's the other side of that.
Yeah.
They are the unformed, less formed creatures who exhibit not only untutored desire, but innocence and beauty simultaneously. And as adults, we become conditioned and formed, and some ways mongrelized in that process.
It's almost as if that first line then stands in contrast to the second line, where suffer can mean more of this openness. Maybe really she had in mind the religious connotation of the biblical passage you quoted. But then you get to list as in want, desire.
Right.
Now there I have another, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, the other thing that I list reminded me, and maybe that I'm really off the mark on this one, but in Hamlet's father says, "List, oh list to me," and then he goes on about the poison in the ear. So list meaning
To listen?
to listen.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's beautiful. Yeah. But then again, making the list, you're listening to your notions in your mind,
Yeah.
and they're coming out. And,
Mm-hmm.
I gotta go to the grocery store. I gotta go to.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just want one thing.
No,
Oh, you want a big list of things.
that's right.
But want can also mean like scarcity, right?
Right.
It has that.
What you don't have.
Yeah. We are in a state of want.
Which is the central premise of economic theory, scarcity. So you make a triage of your list, but if you're overwhelmed by it, you're just in a maelstrom.
But then listless, the next line
I
is
love that.
as
That's
having.
such a great contrast.
Oh, I love
line
it.
for line, isn't it? List and then list less.
Yeah, having no desire.
Right. Or not having a list.
But also being exhausted, spent.
Yeah, another word, indifferent. Too tired to care about anything.
Too tired.
Yeah, this one sentence has two definite, different, not thoughts, but anyway, parts. One is that you give up your list and give up your desires, you transcend them, you get above them. And you don't need a list anymore because you don't have these desires. And then the other one is, though, that you just can't do it. You've had too much. And that's right.
And so that's kind of, that second one is more like what I was describing. But the first version of listless would be as if one were without a list.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
And you didn't
many
need it. You
connotations.
don't need a list.
No, you don't need a list.
Your desires are gone. You don't need to list them because you don't have them. They're transcended. That's the word.
And you show by not rising to greet, it's kind of like a colloquial expression or an everyday activity or everyday way of doing things. One rises to greet somebody when they enter a room.
And I think there's some of us in this room who just get listless because we've done most of it already, and physically we aren't even able sometimes to jump up and greet the day. We are listless. We're devoid of energy. And then that happens when you get old.
I saw that too, but there's a liberating aspect to that, because if you're not overwhelmed by your physical pain and your exhaustion, you're going slower.
There's a great peace in
And you're
being
looking
listless.
more carefully. Yeah.
You get up in the morning and you don't have to answer the phone. And you don't have to get in your car and go face things. And it's a very lovely, lovely kind of thing that a few of us are blessed to get because we did it. I mean, we got here, not our fault, but we got here.
Yeah, or it seems like there are a couple ways that you can deal with desire. One is listless in the sense of, I can't,
Right.
I'm too tired to care. And the other one is a conscious decision. I'm throwing away the list.
Well, you're liberated. That's my point.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're
Both are
liberated.
there.
You're not controlled by that.
What about the next version of list?
I love this.
So and I thought of you right away when I saw this.
Yeah, I don't know how many people get the naval
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
connotation.
You're listing.
But when your vessel is lists, there's a danger. There's something wrong.
Yeah.
Or in a sailboat, you have to be careful how much you list. This wind, as you come into the wind, makes you list more and more, and you can topple over.
Yeah, so the list, like the stanza, it does imply danger. It's not just
Sure.
leaning to one side.
No.
It
No.
is.
No, it's danger.
When your vessel lists, you got to find out why. You're in trouble.
So it is to list in that sense different from tacking into the wind. You know, where
Well, it's two different things, right? In the one instance, you create the list, and then you have to be, the good sailor knows how close he can get to the wind and not tip over. And the closer you get to the wind, the faster you go, and the more your sailboat lists. Yeah.
And I think this is a metaphor. It's very interesting because it's not an appeal to, oh, your desires are your sins. It's part of being human. Navigate it carefully.
so there can be, it sounds like a controlled list, like you were saying. You're tacking in the wind, and then there's the something really awful is happening list. Or is the list always just?
Let's just go back and think about desire, though. If you start fulfilling all these desires
Yeah.
and start getting the things you desire, you're going to become dangerously unbalanced. And the word dangerous there, I think, is really important. You can try to keep an even keel in your
So
life
to
as
speak.
well as on sea. But when you begin to acquire and achieve your desires, you may become very unbalanced.
What if we gave the word list, as in to list, its other meaning, as in to list items?
That's right.
So
Both of those are-
that would mean your list of desired items. Pursuing that is, there's a danger there. You
There's a
could
danger.
lean
You
dangerously.
get unbalanced.
You're going to get overwhelmed.
So it works in both senses.
Yeah.
Huh.
And also, I think it leads you into that listlessness of being spent. And one simple way of looking at that is debt in modern economy. Seeking desires, debt, and out of control.
You're not in the middle way,
No,
not even keeled,
nope.
as Lewis.
See, the spent again immediately brings to my mind the state after, and you know, this is weird, but after sexual fulfillment,
Mm-hmm.
you're spent.
Yeah.
You've had your orgasm, you've had whatever goes on with lovemaking, and in humans that's so powerful, it's tremendously powerful. But then when it's over, you're spent. That's it.
Well, and that connotation was, I looked in the Urban Dictionary to see what, if that word had some sort of currency and meaning, and that particular connotation came up.
Did it?
Yeah. What else? Spent can also mean, you've spent all your money. Spent is you've exhausted all your funds. So spent is in physically tired, including physically tired after sex. Spent as spent all your money.
Yeah, and in that connotation, I think to me anyway, it means that before you spent it, you had a limited amount.
Mm.
And so you had to deal that out. So when you spend, you have to make a budget, and you have to understand how much you have before you spend it. And when your budget's, when you've spent your budget, that's it.
And stepping back from that, which is totally correct, is time. Limited amount of
Absolutely,
time.
absolutely.
How are we going to use it?
Yeah.
What about the one-line stanza above it? Have you forgotten?
Have you forgotten?
Well, I would go back to that scarcity is a part of the human condition. And if you didn't know about it, you should have known about it
Right.
from your experience existentially. The simple, thoughtful experience ought to teach you that, don't you think?
Well, I took have you forgotten as some sort of admonition, just
Have you forgotten there's limits?
right.
Yeah, that's
There's
just what I
limits
said.
to your
There are
desire. Don't
limits, my
forget
friend. From experience.
Yeah.
Have you forgotten that?
Yeah. And so, have you forgotten about all this desire stuff?
Mm-hmm. You haven't looked deeply into your life.
There are limits to all this.
Yeah.
And if you don't, if you have forgotten it might not be really neat when you're spent. It might not be so satisfying when you're spent. In fact, it might be just awful. You might end up being a pauper and in jail or something.
Or you'll convert to Catholicism or
Yeah.
whatever.
Or you might be very satisfied and very happy that you spent it.
Yeah.
Have you forgotten?
And another more positive connotation, spent as in recognizing some value to be listless, not listless in the sense of being tired and not caring, but listless in letting go of all those.
And exhaustion is not such a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many you run long races, but when you've done well on a long race and it's over, the exhaustion is really very pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
You can say I did it and I completed it, and the exhaustion part of it is part of the enjoyment of running a long race or competing in a lot of other ways.
And I just got to add this one. In that sense, you set out to do something and you did it simply, but you're not driven by the next thing to do while you're in that state. You're really present right now.
Right. And accomplished you.
It reminds me of a little Buddhist story about a young monk who goes to his teacher and says, I'm just not getting it. So the teacher puts a bag of rocks on the young man's back and makes him run up and down a hill 100 times. And by the time that he's done 100, he comes back down to his teacher and he said, "Now I understand."